And these things happen all the time, you know. We notice in our own church that people come to church on Sunday like they're just strolling onto the golf course or the beach or something. There doesn't seem to be any, you know, even in the past few years, it was slower to hit that Italian ethnic community, but it's I'd say the last 5 years have been a steady deterioration in appropriate dress for Sunday Mass or any Mass.
What shocks me is the level of knowledge that Catholics seem to have today. Do you know what 75% of Catholics believe to be the most important part of the, what do they call it, the liturgy, what used to be called the Mass? What 75% of Catholics say is the most important part of the Mass?
I have no idea.
The sign of peace.
Oh!
The hug of peace, whatever.
Oh!
75%.
The handshake of Freemasonry.
Yes. It's shocking, and it's true that 70% of Catholic laypersons, who knows what percentage of priests, but 70% of Catholic laypersons no longer believe in the real presence.
I hear these statistics. I find it hard to believe them, but I suppose as the general culture, we just watch it crash and burn. It's just decaying so rapidly and so outlandishly.
But it hasn't been so rapid.
Well, you may be right on that.
We have been living on top of a glacier, and we've grown accustomed to the weather. And we live years. There's 4 seasons and so forth. But the glacier keeps growing. And it cleans out everything before it. It scrapes clean all our customs. All the customs of Catholicism have been pushed out, pushed into the sea.
You know, there are signs. I mean, just not to be a total downer. There are signs. I can remember going through the early years of the Novus Ordo era. And the rosary had just disappeared from the church. It just, for a decade or so, it just had disappeared. Certainly priests never mentioned it. It's coming back.
This is true. Yeah. This is true. It is.
Adoration of Blessed Sacrament is coming back. Perpetual Adoration Societies, they're coming back. Some of these conservative things are coming back. You know what my hope is? I don't see any quick solution to this, like a Vatican III council. The current set of the hierarchy is totally against going back. But I do see that there's a movement among the younger clergy to be more conservative about the Catholic faith, to take it much more seriously than the priests of the 60s and 70s.
Oh, this is true.
Yeah, and the children or the grand...
Perhaps we'll have a better educated group, and perhaps in another generation or two we'll be ripe.
At least that long.
Yeah.
It'll take at least that long.
I
Probably
think so.
much longer. Yes, that would be a minimum. But there are several signs I see. One sign I see there are young parents who are having large families.
Yes.
A few of them. But oh, the children are just spectacular. They are more handsome than normal. Yeah. They are more intelligent than normal. These are special graces that they received at their conception because of their parents' obedience to the laws of God.
And how many of them are homeschooled?
Yeah. And thank you for bringing that up, because we know several homeschooling families, and certainly those good parents are spending what would have been their leisure time, I would think, in preparation for the homeschooling and involvement with the homeschooling, and it does produce a very superior performance in all these spelling contests they have. It's usually a homeschooled child who is spelling all the words correctly and winning the trophy and so forth. But on Mother Angelica Live, EWTN, there are at least once a week with Marcus Grodi, Grodi, table full of ex-Protestant ministers, all of whom have become Catholics. You know, one night he had 4 Presbyterian ex-ministers of the Presbyterian faith, and they were now Catholics and seeking to serve the church. And the suffering of those people, all of a sudden they're out of a job, they're married, they have children. It's a horrible crisis that they have to go through in order to enter the church. And it's just remarkable that so many, on a monthly basis, between 1 and 3 ex-Protestant ministers enter the Catholic Church now, for the past year. Between 1 and 3 on a monthly basis. And considering in the past few weeks the numbers of Mormons, a Jewish rabbi, he was Rabbi Dalit, D-A-L-I-T, I forget the first name. He gave the most.
I was a veteran of World War II.
He gave the most vigorous and brilliant defense of Pope Pius XII. This touched me deeply because as a very young teacher, the first year that I taught, I had to go to the Protestant countryside, very far from my home. It was like a 3-hour drive to an area of Indiana that, you know, you rarely met a Catholic. And in fact, I found out later that the people that I rented a room from, and they treated me very well, and I lived in their home that first year, he was in fact a Mason. I was surprised, you know, to put it all together later. But they were always very good to me. And I was so lonely, see, because there was no Catholic community.
Right.
But I would buy the little Sunday newspaper, which was the diocesan paper. On the front page, in the left-hand column, there was always an interview of Pope Pius, a review of an interview that he had, Pope Pius XII, with a group of professional people. Like one week he would meet with some doctors, another week he would meet with some businessmen or something. And it was a short, you know, exchange between them, and then he'd give a little summary talk. And I always had the impression that he and I were in the same room and he was talking to me. That was the power of communication of Pope Pius XII. A very distinct...
He had a tremendous, being Italian. At one time we went in the middle of the square and announcing on the radio, radio, no TV in those days, everybody stopped. Listen to Pius XII. Everybody, you know, he was amazing, you know, the power of
He was so holy and filled with the virtues of the Holy Spirit, you know, so that he had such dignity and he acknowledged such dignity in others. Right. And they said that in big crowds on the piazza in front of the Vaticano there, that it seemed he moved without walking. And they said that they were certain that he was carried by angels because he didn't, you know, have the ordinary movements of walking through a crowd that was pressing on him on all sides. He just sort of glided through the crowd. I think you can
see that in some of the newsreels.
Yes.
He just,
yes.
You know, it looks like he's gliding.
He was born of the nobility. He was a Roman prince, in fact. But what I've discovered in my long life is that anything that touches Christ becomes ennobled. So what you have there are 2 layers. You know, you have the traditional nature of a noble family, and then you have on top of that the marvelous Catholic education and the holiness of the man himself, his great virtues. Well, in addition to the tremendous flow of serious non-Catholic leaders toward the church, I think they sense a severe crisis on the horizon, and I think that they, like a little animal, you know, that's sniffing the air and he knows that there's dangers approaching and he flees or whatever.